Good morning. This is Ryan Miller from Parent Dome, where I broadcast daily on Periscope, where I speak about the keeping kids safe in a digitally immersed life. And I talk about awareness, oversight, and controls. Last evening, I was in a blab session where we covered this topic and some others. Facilitated me to open up this session right now. And join me this morning is Lori Reed, a therapist who specializes in children acting violent against their parents. And there's a correlation in the relationship because one of the most talked about things that happens in a therapist office is about parents, their children, and the internet. So the topic here is digital citizen stewardship. What is the parental role? I look at it from a subjective or objective approach, and we're going to start a conversation with Lori. So thanks for joining me, Lori.
Sure, anytime.
So what are your thoughts on the topic about digital citizenship, the relationship between the parent, the child, technology, ethics, and morals? Let's start with that.
Well, let me break it down a little bit further than that, because I think that just so we're not talking over someone's head in a lot of ways, let's give an example of what citizenship, what the definition of stewardship is. And then also what is a subjective kind example as well as an objective example. So I'll give it back to you, Ryan, so you can kind of talk more about what your definition from that when it comes to citizenship and stewardship, because those are words that not everyone knows what that means. And I think if we could break it down a little bit further, that might be a little better understanding of, and then I can kind of tag into that.
That's a great point, and because it does have a meaning to me, and it comes from my presupposition and worldview. So that's a good thing to redirect it back to me. So citizenship is going to be based upon where you are geographically. Mm-hmm. So if we're dealing with a global audience, our citizenship is where we stake our flag as to where we reside right now in the culture in which we live. Mm-hmm. And what rules that we agree with or disagree with in how we're staking our flag. Mm-hmm. So if we live in the United States, we have the ability to be protected in the constitutional freedoms that we have and how we exercise them as a citizen within our country. Yes. If we are a transplant into our society, we are supposed to agree with the doctrines that we set forth in our Constitution. That's what you're sworn in to do, to uphold and support the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So that would be my premise, that from my standpoint, living in the United States, talking about that word, how do we behave as citizens in accordance with our doctrine, and as we extend that into how we interact with other humans inside this country digitally.
Good point. See, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that sometimes what happens is that because we're with social media, this is a world platform. This isn't necessarily from the United States point of view. And though culturally we may interact a little bit differently than someone from the UK or even from Russia or from Saudi Arabia or any other countries that may kind of jump into either our blab, our Periscope, or any of the other interactions that we may have. And so part of it is that I really let me just give you kudos on the sense of you having that terms of service, because it makes it very blatantly clear as to what your mission is and vision and value system when it comes to you being on this platform. And I think that that's also, very helpful for other individuals to see that, because that just shows you what your citizenship is and what your stewardship is in your platform that you're able to control. I think that from other individuals' point of view, when they jump on, they don't necessarily have that. They don't know how that may interact. And I think that that's the question that we're here for. What is your responsibility on social media? And then let's take it a little bit further. What is your responsibility as a parent to your kids who may be on social media?
That's very good, Lori, because I have gone through this evolution that I have known on social media that there is no moral or ethic that drives the experience. It's up to the person sitting in the chair with the little H over it, or the broadcaster on Periscope, is to determine what is appropriate or not.
Correct. And I think that those that are in that spot don't necessarily put their ethic out there, or their what their, I wouldn't say mission, but their purpose. There you go. Maybe a purpose as to what their blab is for. Because, like you and I, we popped into different people's blabs, and we've popped into different people's periscopes, and we've saw some things that are not necessarily need to be seen. And to say it lightly. And then there's also ones that you go on there and there isn't really any kind of outline, from a blab that talks about certain things, and then they go on forever. But I think, what is our stewardship, and what is our, citizenship, or what is our responsibility when it comes to, as from a parental role? I mean, I know for me, seeing the kids that come through my door and the parents that come through my door, just having some kind of parental authority is foreign to them, let alone trying to put safeguards in there, because technology is ever evolving, that a parent may necessarily catch up on it, but it's already had the damage done, so to speak. And so they're already onto a different platform, or they're circumventing something else to get to somewhere else. And, kids are very savvy, and social media platforms make it that savvy. I mean, even Periscope, they even have it as under teens if you want to download it. So parents are thinking it's okay. It's not okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so not okay. But that's I talk about the legality of that and the indemnification, mm-hmm. and why those things are the way they are. But one thing that strikes me of interest, mm-hmm. is the inconsistency, mm-hmm. the hypocrisy and/or / double standard. Mm-hmm. That I've witnessed this on multiple social media platforms, that one person can be speaking about one particular topic, and this happens in this platform. There's mm-hmm. coaching, there's mentoring, there's whatever it is, and you congregate a group of people which affirm your message.
Right, exactly.
So you're all about this coaching and encouragement and uplifting behavior with those that affirm you.
Right.
And then those that are not affirming you, you judge and condemn them.
Right.
So I see that being a stark contradiction, that how can you only want to speak to those that affirm you, and you want to dismiss those that won't affirm you. Mm. So then I would just say, let's just embrace that reality.
Right. I mean, well, let's just put it even more bluntly. We want to surround ourselves with yes people. We want to surround ourselves with people saying, "Ooh, good job." I mean, we want to do that. Why? Because for a migrant for different reasons. But like-minded individuals are attracted to like-minded individuals. And so therefore, whatever you put out there, you're going to get those like-minded individuals.
And I agree with that, because I want to surround myself with people that believe some of the things that I do and mm-hmm. affirm some of the things I do. But Correct. That doesn't mean that I'm going to dismiss somebody that has a contrary opinion. I'm right. allowed to disagree with that opinion, and they're allowed to disagree with mine, but I don't dismiss them.
Right,
and
exactly.
That has become a behavior that we all can get drawn into. So from a parent standpoint, that is the paradigm which I think we all can exist, that we want to gravitate towards those that affirm us. Mm-hmm. We could be tempted to dismiss those that don't agree with us. In turn, we're modeling that behavior for our children.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it becomes a world where, as parents, that our own example in what we do in social media sets the citizenship platform. And then it also, our own behavior determines what the stewardship platform is. Mm-hmm. So it could, I don't know if this is the case because I'm not in your office, but it's almost like do as I say, but not as I do.
Oh, I grew up with that. That's what my father would say all the time.
And I can get trapped into that myself. But fortunately, I have someone that I partnered with mm-hmm. that will say that is inconsistent.
Right. I definitely, I think it goes back to if we go into, psychology 101, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. As you mature and as you get, as you mature and as you gain more experience and more knowledge about the world and how you look at it and the perspective of it and how you reframe it in your life, determines kind of how you'll be more aware of what's going on. So,
but who is to hold us accountable for our awareness?
Now we're getting into philosophical questions. I love it. But it's true.
And that's kind of my hurdle, because when I talk about this topic, and if I go to a school and an invitation to talk about the dangerous risks, threats, and permanence, there is no awareness. There is an experience base which parents are aware of, but they do not want to become aware.
Well, I think this is the experience that I've had. One is it's extremely overwhelming for parents.
Agree.
And
myself
right, exactly. It's extremely overwhelming for parents to know that there's so many different things out there. The reason why I don't have a MacBook, a Mac computer, an Apple computer or whatever is because I don't want to have the learning curve. I'm like, I can't handle it. I mean, and I'm not that old, but there is a point where it's like, okay, I cannot handle. The threshold is already there. I cannot learn any new stuff at this point in time. I just want to function on my day-to-day work. And that's the same way with parents that have teens and young adolescents that are, this world is just too crazy. They're worried about, are they going to be safe in school? Are they going to be safe here? Are they going to, all these other things that are going on that, I just had my neighbor across the way who, thankfully I was here, that her father committed suicide just recently, right after Christmas. I mean, it's these are the things that parents have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and as well as the kids have to deal with. And I'm not throwing that out there to be, that this every parent or every child or doomsday here, but this is the reality of things. And so internet safety is kind of foreign to them. There's a lack of understanding of what it is. And a lack of knowledge and fear. There's a fear of, I don't want to know these things. I don't even want to go there with these things. And then it becomes, once I do know these things, now what do I have to do about it? Now I have to put action to it.
This is really good, because I'm gonna explore that for a second. So in your example, the learning curve to go from PC to Mac is a stumbling block for you to go.
Yeah.
But what is the reality behind that fear? Because I'm a person that was a PC guy, that I'm a Mac guy now. I had that fear, but I thought, what is that fear based in reality? So what is that for you? What is your awareness and the reality behind that fear?
My fear, I wouldn't necessarily, okay, so if we go back down to a fear level, or a barrier level. Time
is one of those.
Yeah, one of those things, because normally the number one thing is really a fear. I mean, if we talk about the reason why individuals don't necessarily want to grow or learn or whatever, is the fact of, there is a fear. And the fear is, for me, I'm going to invest this time. I'm going to invest the money in something. And then there's a learning curve to it that I am not quite prepared or patient enough to go through that curve. And the fear is spending time to something that there isn't a value. I can still function on a different system. So there isn't that threshold of pain yet. How's that sound? And so how that relates to parents is that until it hits who they are, does it become a threshold of pain to where they have to make a decision? So if by some chance my computer system goes down and I need to get a new computer, I'm going to probably go with what is familiar to me, just for safety and for comfortability, rather than trying to add something else because of that threshold of frustration. And it's not something that I don't want to take the responsibility on to learn. There you go.
So those are good. I would, in this anecdotal example, I would say those fears
Mm-hmm.
are not real,
Right.
because the learning curve to transition from one to the other is minimal.
Right.
The benefit you achieve by making the transition is monumental.
Correct.
And so the familiarity piece is what we would be giving up.
Yes.
So that metaphor translates.
Yes, exactly.
But here's the thing. The parents, they know it's bad. They know it's dangerous. But their fear is they don't want to change. They don't want to embrace the new technology.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece is they don't want the friction. They don't want the friction.
Yes, I definitely agree. And if we go back down to that analogy of switching from a PC to a Mac, level of change, and you brought up a good point. I'm okay with a PC. I can still function with a PC until I have to not function with a PC. Am I going to then face the reality of not functioning with a PC? So when my child, and it's mostly after the fact, becomes aggressive, starts because of bullying online, from changing of personalities to their demeanor of who they are, to something changing to upset the homeostasis of where the family has functioned at, does anyone then say, okay, I now need to focus on what this is? And then once you start unpeeling these things, it becomes overwhelming. So I think they want, for me, I'll go back down to the PC versus the Mac. I want the easy thing. We're humans. And so I've learned this. I taught this. I've been using it for several, years now. Why do I need to change? And so parents ask that question. Why do I need to change? Why does it have to be me that has to change? Why does it have to be me that has to do these things?
Okay, so that's a great point.
Yes.
So the parents are not wanting to change, and they are not talking about the morals and ethics regarding what a child should be doing on the internet.
Correct.
So where do they think that is being developed? Where do they think the children's moral and ethical compass is coming from? Academia, their peers, society, the TV, or where do the parents think that's coming from?
I don't think that they, and I'm not trying to put down parents. I don't think that I don't think that they necessarily. I don't think it enters their brain. Does it make sense? Like it doesn't come up. It's not like, oh, I know that so if I give my child a computer, or I give my child an iPhone, or I give my child these types of things, I'm going to put some safeguards on there because that's a good parent does. Yes. Put safeguards in there. But to really know the dangers and the layers underneath of it, you would probably never have given your child a phone in the first place, or a computer in the first place.
So if a 9-year-old child happens to get porn on their phone, how would the parent or child know that that was good or bad without the parent having a knowledge of that?
I don't think the parents have the knowledge of that. I think that they trust their child. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, just saying that this is what it is. They trust their child enough to know that they're not going to go do these bad things. But we forget that there is a danger that is out there that is attaching to children that are on the internet to pull them away from this innocent mindset of just going on either Minecraft or Disney Channel or whatever it may be, to a way that there are groomers out there that will groom them along the way to get them into deeper and deeper levels without the understanding of the parent's involvement and without the understanding of the child's involvement, like until it's too late.
Would you suggest that parents don't know at all how dangerous the internet is?
I don't believe they know how dangerous it is. I don't believe they know. I think just like in anything else in our world. It's happening to them out there. It's not happening to me. It's happening to someone else out there. It's not happening to me. And so once it hits me or hits a community of me, then I might say, I need to now kind of look at that. But because it's not in their peripheral vision, because they have so many other things that they're looking at on a day-to-day basis, such as I got to go to work, I got to bring food on the table, I got to bring income, I got to have a roof over my head, that Maslow hierarchy.
Yeah.
This is something that's way up there that parents, I don't think that they know.
How can they say it's not happening if they have no visibility into whether it's happening or not? Because they know by their own experience, by the amount of TV that they consume, and the amount of consumption of TV is off the charts in our country, that based upon that one media outlet alone, whether you're watching TMZ, the 30 Mile Zone, or you're watching Dr. Phil or whatever you're watching, that it's in front of us, that it is in our immediate vision how this tool, this digital pathway is part of our life. And it also exposes the dangers of that. So what would possess a parent to say, it's not my child, and not want to go and look if it is their child? Because it is in their face.
I think the technology is in their face. I don't think that they know the safeguards that are needed. That's not in their face. Because why? Because that stops parents from purchasing. So, for example, I have 5 godchildren, and I was asking Aspen, she's 4, will be 5, and I said, Aspen, what do you want from Aunt Laurie for Christmas? And she's like, oh, I want this really great doll, and it speaks to you and it talks to you. And I look at Mama, who I'm like, okay, is this approved? Is this not approved? And she goes, absolutely not. Because what happens is that there's this dial that's out there that has this thing where it gets connected to the internet that then records the child's conversation with the doll. And then the doll changes its personality to the child. And this was an educated parent here, but not every parent knows that then the voice of your child's being recorded.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. So if we put the dangers out there, all the other corporations that feed off of that make revenue off of that, they don't necessarily want that. I don't think they want that information out there.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, the corporate world doesn't want people to be aware of the dangers, risks, and threats. That's counter to their objective. That is completely counter objective.
Absolutely. And I think that, like the hoverboard, now this has nothing to do with the internet, but I mean, houses are catching on fire, but hoverboard is still, being purchased all over the place, but they're, short circuiting and causing fires in houses and, all these types of things. But yet, there's little things here and there that you see on social media about it, but the dangers of this and what's going on doesn't necessarily pop up, and how you can then avoid that danger by not purchasing it.
The hoverboard, when you open it, we did not get one of those for Christmas, but I asked a friend of mine who has one.
Right.
And I said, aren't you supposed to be riding these with a helmet on?
Right.
And he said, oh, yes. All of the packaging says before you step on this, you need to be wearing at least a bike helmet. The incidence of child and parent concussion over the holidays was through the roof because people got these hoverboards as the present, and then all of a sudden they're wiping out and they're getting concussions.
Yes.
Now you got traumatic brain injury from just ignoring the terms of service when you buy that device.
I know. But do you think that the makers of the hoverboard are going to go out there with a parental advisory and say, all parents understand this. You must be when you ride this, you must be wearing a helmet. Yes, it is liability wise written down and it covers them. but that doesn't mean that they're actually going out there and advising parents, just kind of like what you're doing, advising parents on the internet safety, because it takes away from the fun. It takes away from the freedom of the unknown and the ostracizing of the topic that, what I don't know, what I don't know is best.
In our country, there's a sentiment. It's called failure to warn, and that all companies need to have appropriate notification on their devices. Mm-hmm. So, like on a bicycle,
correct.
A bicycle is sold with reflectors on the wheels, and it says, "Do not ride at night unless you have a headlamp and a tail light. Do not ride at night. Must have a helmet." But if you buy the bike and you only have the reflectors and you're riding at night with no headlamps, that is not the merchant's problem. That is the person's problem.
Exactly.
The fact that people choose not to abide by those rules, the consequences of that are not the devices, but the individuals.
Okay, so let's take that a little bit further. So who's responsible when the parent purchases the bike and doesn't get the helmet or the reflectors?
Yeah, that's a parent issue.
Exactly.
It's not the bike manufacturer. It's like claiming the fork made me fat. The fork had nothing to do with what I put on it to put in my mouth.
No, of course.
So it's like the bike itself is just a tool. The internet is a tool. The devices are a tool. How we interact with them is where the dangers come in.
Exactly.
And that is kind of, we put this access into a very, very powerful tool into children's hands without defining how they're going to use it. Mm-hmm. So it is in your example or our mutual example of giving them a bike, mm-hmm. not teaching them how to ride the bike with the training wheels nor giving them a helmet and pushing them down a hill and say, take care.
Right, exactly. Good luck. And let me just say this. I grew up without riding a helmet. I grew up without having a reflector. And so this is the same rhetoric that parents normally state as well, that, well, when I was a kid, we didn't necessarily do all these things, but yet here we are now. But I must say that the rules of the road has changed drastically.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the consequences. So when I was growing up, I'm a bit older than you, mm-hmm. that my parents let me go out and explore.
Right, exactly.
In that exploration, the distance of that exploration changed as I grew.
Correct.
So when I was a toddler, my exploration was inside the confines of a room. Mm-hmm. And as I got beyond the toddling years, it was in the floor, part of the house. But each of those areas were secured based upon how old I was. You had outlet protectors. There were no chemicals on the floor. They kept it safe from me as I toddled around.
Right.
As I went through my teen years, I played in the neighborhood. As long as I could hear my dad's whistle, I was good. After that, I got more that I could go as far as a bike ride away that was outside the whistle. Mm-hmm. But if I did not respond to the rules, I would not have that level of freedom again.
Correct.
They'd say, you can't ride your bike, you have to come back in. That kind of parenting, we forgot. Many parents forgot that they've gone through this stage of the evolution of their raising a child, and they've put this technology in their hands, which is an unthrottled freedom that they have no ability to restrain.
Yes, and I definitely agree with the fact of using what they have learned and how that applies is something that it can be very basic. But let me flip that for you on the sense of how this is different with the age of technology and the internet. They do not have that experience to rely on to say, okay, yeah, I remember when I was a kid, this is kind of the evolution of what I did when it came to a bike, or an evolution of what did on this or whatever it may be, because we've had that experience. But I think that this information world has been so overwhelming and changing so constantly that it's so hard to keep up with, that I think that it's overwhelming. And to have something that is so targeted and streamlined to give the answers so parents can actually do something with it instead of being inundated with so much information about it. It becomes overwhelming. So, for example, when it comes to parental controls, it started out with TV, started out with, how to do these types of things. But now, what are the best parental safeguards for the internet? I have not seen an article in a very long time that talks about what those controls are. Now, they talk about monitoring the amount of time that they're online, but the state, you need to have these types to prohibit hackers, prohibit individuals coming in, prohibit pop-ups, whatever it may be. That isn't discussed. There isn't something that's out there in information land to say, parents, put this on your computer.
Well, so that there's not going to be that message.
No.
Because that is counter to what the corporations want. They want you to have that lack of wisdom so that they can get more data from you.
Correct.
And then if you do want it, you have to know what you're looking for and type it into a Google string so you will be able to find it.
Exactly.
But that information, if you don't know what the dangerous risks and threats are, you don't know what to type in the Google string to find out what's available.
Correct. I definitely think that's true. And Richard brings up a really good point. Yes, I definitely believe digital stewardship and things like that. That's kind of why I said, okay, let's break down what that means and kind of discuss those types of things, because I think when it comes to, as you would say, layman's terms, it's really, how do we, give me a new title, Smarty Pants. Yeah, I love it. Good point. I definitely think, and to be honest with you, when I started to do my curriculum, and started to work with families, for me as a clinician, it's like I know exactly what you need to do. I know exactly, but I realized that I forgot to go to the parents and ask them, what do they need? And sometimes what the parents need is to cut through all this with a knife to say, I get so much information from blogs and all these other things that talk about 3 tips for this and 5 tips for that. And it's really just content, and it's not really any answers. And, I want to make sure that I get answers. And so part of it is, okay, what can you do as a parent to fight against the tsunami of social media and internet danger? Like, I can see this as a picture in my head here, like a cartoon. Here's this tsunami, and the parents are like, okay, now what do I do here? I don't know. And and they have this sandbag, and they're trying to fill their bag with sand to kind of block this tsunami of water coming on them. And that sandbag is not going to help them, but they think that that's okay.
That's a great analogy. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to do is throw them a surfboard so that they can enjoy it when that wave is coming. That it is not that overwhelming, that if you have the tool, which is the surfboard, that you can navigate that wave.
Right.
You can't stop it from washing away the shoreline, though.
Right. So my role is to tell them, okay, I want you to climb up the mountain, be on the highest point and looking down so you can look at it and say, wow, what a beautiful little wave that's coming through.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am as well, that I'm trying to stand up here to draw awareness of this beautiful landscape. But then inside that landscape are some nasty critters running around that are trying to devour your children.
Correct.
So it's they're down inside the trees. You see the trees. You see the meadow, which is the social media applications like YouNow and Chat Roulette and whatever they are. It's a beautiful meadow, but inside that meadow are predators that are trying to eat your kids in that meadow.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that, and I'm not the most internet savvy person. Someone could actually, you have your typical malware and all these other things, but yet, I don't have any safeguards that are on my computer at this point in time, let alone trying to figure out what cookies or someone who might be following me and adding this information, or, when I go on my phone and it says, such and such application wants to, to locate your location, and I'm like, don't allow. So, there's just things like that even adults just don't know. I don't know. So,
so if I were to take a step back, because we can talk about the things that people are not aware of and that they don't know, that my approaches have been to talk about the awareness and say, you can't be held responsible for what you don't know. Mm-hmm. But you could be held responsible for the choice that you're choosing not to know more, because the consequences of you not knowing are pretty significant.
Correct. You may not know the responsibility, you may not. Okay, go back and say that again, because I think that was a very good point.
You can not know, but your choice of not wanting to know has consequences.
Correct. I think it doesn't matter. Regardless of what it is, the consequences are the same. If you know or don't know, the consequences could still be the same.
Correct. Yep. So the gamble is, I'm going to hold on, not wanting to know anymore, and take a gamble on what the consequences are. Right. As you said earlier.
Or I don't know the consequences, and therefore I'm clueless about it. But the consequences will still come.
The consequences are inevitable. Correct. The consequences, it's, since you were born, you will die.
Yes.
The only ability to escape death is to not to have been born. Yes. This is the consequences of the internet. Yes. That if you are connected, you have been born. Yes. You have no ability to escape death or the consequences, because you are now part of the ecosystem.
Right.
So if I want to prolong my life, I want to do things and have behaviors that prolong my life. Mm-hmm. That I want to have a fitness regime, I want to have a dietary regime, and whatever. Those life things to prolong my ability to exist. Playing that out, my future is affected by how I implement these things. If I want to live longer, it's the food and exercise and other behaviors. On the internet, it's where I go, what I do, what I say, and how that is also affecting me, affects my trajectory.
Correct. And so let me I'm going to put another analogy into this. It's similar to when we were young. We would eat whatever we wanted to eat, knowing that we would never get fat, because at that time, when we're running around at 6 years old, eating everything that we would want to see, we were okay with that. But as we mature and grow and we see the consequences of our ways because of the extra weight or the high cholesterol, there are those consequences. So it's the same way with this. It's the parents nowadays with this information age. It is as if they are 6 or 7 running around saying, wow, what a great tool. What a wonderful thing. But they have not necessarily seen the devastating dangers that it possesses.
Are you saying that they have no awareness of those dangers, or are they choosing not to acknowledge the reality of those dangers?
Both. I think there's two camps. I think there's parents that are out there that have no clue about it and they have no awareness of it. And secondly, there's individuals that kind of know the information, but maybe not the deep, the darkness, the huge darkness of it, unless they watch, Criminal Minds or some other show that kind of alludes to it, that may pique their interest to look into it. But I don't believe that they fully understand the vast evil that does exist out there. And I think that's scary for them when we go back down to the fear part of it.
So I think our points are very valid and resonate with people. But I think that fear piece is, I don't know enough about human psychology to understand that. I know my messaging. I strive to be non-judgmental.
Absolutely.
That is my goal. That I want to say what I do is only based upon my particular foundation and view. And I base it to that. And I'm willing to have discussions of people that disagree with my view. But this is based upon what I want as an objective outcome for my child. Mm-hmm. If I engage another parent, they're not going to discuss with me, my behaviors, they're going to be defensive on their own behaviors.
Yes.
I'm trying to find out what is the reason beyond fear that will prevent people from wanting to hear about those long-term risks. What holds people back to just have a conversation? When I do a presentation at a school that's got 700 parents, I will have 20 people show up. They don't want to hear it. So why are they choosing not to even hear it?
Well, I think that there's oh man, you're let me just dig deeper into that.
Well, Sherry just said because they have to accept they didn't do more. But Sherry, that is not a judgment base. That's somebody's internal critic.
Correct.
That is their own internal criticism that, you know what? So what? When can we give ourselves the grace and latitude to know that we are allowed to make mistakes and that we could do something more? That's my question.
I think that's. I think when we go to the psychology of things, I think again it goes back down to that Maslow hierarchy. You're asking for them to have self-actualization, and they're not quite there. They're still at that survival mode, though that they have access to and funds to pay for something doesn't necessarily mean that they have the awareness of.
Take the financial impact out of the equation. Take the financial impact off the table. When are people going to be able to give themselves enough sense of peace that they can't hold themselves accountable for what they don't know?
That's just like anybody. It's all about us taking responsibility and accountability. I think that's the hardest thing for humans to do is to accept that and take responsibility and then put actions to it. I mean, that's such a higher level of thought that not everyone has that mentality to do. Not that that's bad or good. I'm just saying that some of the individuals that we're asking to is that we're asking them to look at something that is just like for my platform. We're asking individuals to look into something that is not, as I have said in the past, a sexy topic. This is not fun. This is not a joyful conversation. This is not something that is about world peace and harmony and flowers and butterflies. It's not about that. We're talking about the pure evils and darkness of the world. And a lot of people don't want to necessarily, there's a stigma associated with dealing with those things because, oh my gosh, that means the world that I live in has some danger. And I don't want to know that.
So, and I appreciate Sherry's comments off to the side because they are appropriate. Mm-hmm. They want to be liked by their kids. I understand that. They don't want to be the mean parent. I get that as well. But then if we give our children all of this freedom without the discipline, then there's a major consequence that will come down the road.
You're absolutely right.
That I'm not inside your therapist office, but I can look at human nature and those parents that have given their children freedom and given them everything they wanted to fill up this emotional void. Those children are train wrecks.
Yeah.
Those children are not employed. They have no sense of self-worth, and they're consuming. They're not providing, they're consuming.
And that is the world that we live in, that is being portrayed to us on a daily basis, if not minute by minute, of our consumption from Johnny having an iPhone 6 at age 7 or 8 because, oh my gosh, I feel that someone might come in and shoot up the school, to then the helicopter parent that says, I need to protect my child and I'm afraid to have them being sent to school, to then, there's so much, it's just,
So John has made a comment here. I think we have fear overlay and we have become desensitized to danger. Well, John, my message is not intentionally designed to be fear-mongering. No. It is not.
No.
But that does not mean we avoid the reality of what is happening. I prefer to talk about this is the reality of the world we have. Whether you're afraid of it or not does not negate that this world exists, and that I want to be prepared or help parents to be prepared as they take their young children to put them into this real world. Mm-hmm. And that here are some tools and resources available to you as you're taking this infant, and sure, you're taking the chemicals out and putting the other devices in your home to keep them safe. But when you make these decisions to put them at risk, this is going to sound histrionic, but would you put a gun in a child's hands without teaching them how to operate the gun? Because that's pretty much, that sounds morbid, but if my daughter has been raised with guns, she's been taught on how they are used for target or for hunting, and I take her to the range and I have her trained on the responsible use of the gun, all the guns are secured in the house, but she knows how to use that. Mm-hmm. So if she were to be presented with it, she would know, I know what this is.
Right. No, that's the first thing. I grew up with guns as well, mainly rifles, shotguns, not pistols, because my dad was a hunter and still is. And when a few years ago, when my husband purchased a 9mm for me as a gift for Christmas, I was like, whoa, this is an actual weapon. So I went to the nearest NRA class and said, okay, I needed to do gun safety. Why? Because my dad instilled in me the safety of guns and safety of boats and safety of different things, and sure, take a class and learn about these things. So tell me, let's get down to this nitty gritty. What classes are out there that parents can take to learn how to safeguard their kids?
Yeah. And that's the challenge. So that's a great question, because it's not like you can go to a school and take a course, because it is so family specific.
Correct.
And that if I go from the position of not being judgmental, which I want to adhere to, and giving people the ability to have a resource of information and make their own decision as to how they would want to apply that in their own life, that's what I was striving to build. A platform that people call the university, that is all of these. If you want to know how, you have to kind of walk before you can crawl, before you can run. So you need to know the big pieces, which is me bringing the awareness. Mm-hmm. And then I talk about the different steps that, based upon your child's age, you can take at any time.
So let me reverse that for you. Why not do that first and then do the awareness?
Nobody will do that. If you put a Google, how to keep your kids safe on the internet, kids won't click on it. Parents won't click on it.
No, but if you do, yes. And it's about marketing and how to get it to that point. But I don't think that, I think parents want, all humans, not just parents, all humans want it easy. And if there are answers to their problems and it can be easier for them, then they will implement what is necessary. What do you think?
I would be false advertising if I said it was easy.
I know. But see, that's the key to human behavior right there. That if we can showcase it easy, and as well as for myself when it comes to teen aggression within the home, and say this is the easy part, because it's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy. But if we could say this is the easy part and then break it up into, as they become more aware or self-aware of different things, then that awareness piece opens up on how difficult it really can be. Instead of saying how difficult it is, and then this is how you do it, why not flip it and say, this is how you could do it, and now here's more awareness of it.
Yeah. And so because it's so enmeshed,
I know.
There's no way to say, well, you need to do this.
Correct.
No, you need to do this, and you need to do this. And there is no first, because the first is, if you've already put the technology in the children's hands, what is first? The first thing I need to do is, what is my child doing on the internet?
Right. Well, I think
then I got to try.
I think that's a great blab right there. Merry Christmas. Here's your first computer. Now what? As a parent, now what? Because
Now what?
Now what? Now what do I do? I gave my kid this computer. Now, now I might be thinking about safety. No, now I may be thinking about what I need to do to safeguard my child.
I did it when I was doing my research and investigation. I went to countless cell phone providers, to the actual retail stores, and I asked them, how many customers ask, what are the parental controls available on the device? I only encountered one store that shared that a parent was actually concerned about if they had parental controls available, not what they were.
Right. No, of course, if they were. And then if they did ask, then the person who's the representative doesn't necessarily know what it is. They would have to go back to the manual and try to figure out, or the manager of the place, or even calling the store corporate office.
Yeah, they have no idea. They have no idea. So I don't know what the first is. I bought a computer. What now? Well, the phone is in my child's hands, and they just got caught with the sext image. What now?
Right.
Or, well, these are great points.
These are great points. And I think it's all about, how do we get information that is so, see, our platform that we work off of, Brian, is more of a reactionary, not a proactive intervention. Yes. And so that's the hard part. Until someone has a crisis, will they then try to find us? Will they try to then say, what do I need to do that? This isn't a preventative measure of how do you make sure that, your teens are safe on the internet, or your kids are safe on the internet. To, parents who have a aggressive teen, they're not going to then, when the child's 6 and acting out, saying, oh, then maybe I should start looking at when they turn a teenager and they become really aggressive, and now they're 6'2", and I can't necessarily protect myself as I can when they're 6. We're not looking at that. And that's human behavior. We don't look at 5 steps ahead of us in the sense of how that might impact us.
I was on Periscope the other night, and I saw a household of drunk adults. I mean, totally hammered with the most vulgar behavior. But it was really amazing? They were still wearing their shirts that had their company's name on their shirts. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. So I screenshotted, and I thought, wow, this is really cool that I understand the character of employee that this company hires. Right. I was like, wow. And they said, oh, why did they share that image? Why did that photo show up in Periscope? And I said, well, I just wanted to get a picture of what the employees, and I typed into this company name, look like living out of Memphis, Tennessee. And they went, how do you know what I mean?
I know.
It's like they can't think 2 seconds about their behavior and the consequences for their behavior.
Well, welcome to the world that I live in the sense of individuals who, and I'm a victim of it too, in my own impulsive ways. Thankfully,
me too. That's why I can't offer judgment. I make the same crap myself.
Exactly. And so, but thankfully, after my years of therapy and my years of having an incredible husband and the inner circle of people that I have that I have awareness of and what goes on in my brain, to say, maybe I need to step this one out for a second. But again, that takes a lot of self-awareness. That I think in this world of age, we are not necessarily step back to say, okay, what are my needs? What's going on? Because I talk to parents about, okay, so what are your needs? And they're like, I need Johnny to do the dishes, or I need Sally to make her bed. And I'm like, no. Those aren't needs. Those are requests. So even in and of itself, we don't know what we truly need. And so if we don't truly know what we need, how do we really know, besides food, clothing, and shelter, that our children's needs are when it comes to internet safety?
So we have been programmed as to what our needs are. That the vehicle with the emblem on the back is a need.
Correct.
The attachment to the internet to have 1,000 TV channels is a need.
Correct.
You have that handbag that's got these funky little logos on it is a need. that has been something that's been programmed into us that we choose to accept.
Yes.
That is. So John is making a recommendation that they shift my outlook concerning that it's hard. Part of your focus is will only bring all the objections into your focus. I believe that your offer is amazing and need to help you ease off.
Thanks, John. That's nice. That was kind of you, John. Thanks.
Yeah, that is nice. Well, okay, so that is a good point, John. And I don't want to. Yeah, see, that's part of my challenge, John, and it's speaking truth.
No, and that's what we're here for, which is really great. I mean, I have the same dilemma too. I mean, I work with parents that have a teen that's aggressive within the home. And I know, Ryan, you and I have talked on a personal level that, my barrier is that I'm not a parent, but I understand the needs of children and I understand what's going on. And I understand within families based on, my experience of being in a family, first and foremost. But secondly, being trained in family therapy to know that, families nowadays have a lot of struggles that are on them. And this world that we live in, I mean, I don't know how many times, even myself right now, I was like, okay, I don't have makeup on. I don't have my hair done. And I'm like, okay, so I just have to get over that. Because part of it is that it's the real world here and we're missing out what the real world is. And with that comes the imperfections of who we are as humans. And we forget that. And I think with parents nowadays and families, not just parents, but families nowadays, they are always on the run. I'm just thinking, I'm driving today and I'm looking at all the people that are driving into work and doing what they need to do. And in the morning time, it's stressful, just trying to get your kids ready and get them out the door, to getting yourself out the door, to getting yourself all beautified, to then go out to work, to do what needs to happen, to then work and have this perfection of making sure that you're doing what you need to do. And then, and making sure you have the right clothes and the right outfits and the right whatever and language. And I mean, we have this persona and mask that we can't really be who we truly want to be. And so we're floating around and we just get pushed from different storms to.
But how do we as people? So, I mean, I've shared a story before that my daughter made a poor choice, and it required a punishment for her poor choice.
Right.
One of the punishments was she would not go ice skating with her girlfriends. Right. And I told her, sweetie, you made a poor choice.
Right.
And there was a consequence to your poor choice. What do you think I should do, sweetie? And she said, I shouldn't go ice skating, Dad. And I said, you know what? You're right. That probably would be an appropriate thing. But you know what? I'm not going to do that because you did make a poor choice, but I don't want to punish you to that extent.
Right.
That I'm going to give you grace because we all make mistakes and I need grace myself. So I'm going to give you grace. And you can go to ice skating. There will be a consequence. I promise you there'll be a consequence, but I am giving grace every day, even though I don't deserve it. So I'm going to pass that on to you. I'm going to give you grace because you don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. So let me find another way to do that. So when can we, as humans, accept that we have grace and that we have the ability to make mistakes, and that we can put something to the side and say, you know what? I made a mistake and I'm not perfect. I'm willing to take another look at this. Or are we going to be so self-critical on what we don't do?
Wow, that's a very so let me just
but those that do understand grace.
Of course, there are people that understand grace, or the people that understand it in the sense of they desire it, but they've never really been given it or shown it, because the grace that they think they've been given or known, or the forgiveness is short term and based on behavior, right? It's not based on them as a value as a human being. It's based on, okay, just I'll let you go this time, but I'm going to hold it over here because us as human beings do that. And I'm going to do a little ticker box. And then once you get to a certain point, then I'm going to throw it all back in your face. And that's kind of where I think people don't quite understand what that true grace is, because they don't know their value of who they are as a person and a human. And we're all working off of empty tanks.
So let me create a dividing line.
Okay.
That I'm going to define what grace is. Mercy is, I get pulled over by Sergeant Neil pulls me over,
mm-hmm.
and he says, "Ryan, I caught you speeding. You violated the law. It's a 25-mile-an-hour zone, and you were going 50."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, "Oh my gosh, Sergeant Neil, you're right." So he goes back to his car. He comes back, and he says, "You know what? This was an oversight. You were not paying attention. I'm going to give you mercy. I'm not going to give you a ticket."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Sergeant Neil, thank you so much." But he goes back to his car, and he comes back, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, I have some leftover donuts from breakfast this morning, and here's some donuts."
Mm-hmm.
So I violated the law, and I was given mercy, but then I was given a gift in grace, even though I didn't deserve it and I broke the law.
Mm-hmm.
So those words, I knew that. I just wanted to go there.
Yeah, donuts are never given.
that was. I was being stereotypical,
I love it, especially the chocolate covered ones and the fillers. Oh no, not those good ones.
But there are people that understand the difference between mercy and grace.
Yes.
That mercy,
theoretically, yes.
Well, I think there's a segment of the population that would know a little bit of what I talked about in that example. Mm-hmm. Grace is an unwarranted, unmerited gift that I got based upon nothing I did.
Correct.
I broke the law, and Neil said, "Here's some donuts." Right. There was no basis for me to receive those donuts other than Neil being graceful to me. So in that example, for those that understand the power of grace, as a parent, mm-hmm. they know they get it unmerited. But when can they allow themselves, their defenses to be down, to give themselves grace that they can't?
Okay. No, I'm right on there with you. So when they feel that they are in a safe environment to do so.
When they're in a safe environment. Okay. So great question.
So when they feel, so for example, the parents that come to my groups, at the beginning, they are mad, they're angry, they feel like they're the victim. What the heck are they doing here? Because their child has beaten the snot out of them, and they had to call the cops, and the cops had to come, and they had to, so here they are, feel like they failed as a parent, they're blamed as a parent, they're going to be blamed even further as a parent, they're going to be told all the things that they're not doing right. But
that's all the internal critic. That
correct.
Has nothing to do with reality. That's all internal critic.
That is true. So how I have to go through that, because I am interacting with them, how I navigate through them is allowing them to be them, allowing them to have that internal critic, and for me to dispute what that is by my action.
So they own it. You therapeutically reflect as to the reality of what they own.
They may not own it. It's just I'm the one that's taken the responsibility, knowing that when they come in, this is their response, and that it is not personal. It is just where they're at. And I have to, based on their narrative from multiple different people, from their minister, pastor, teachers, in-laws, parents, their networks, from reading different things, from how parents are bad parents, whatever it may be, that I know that they're coming into this realm with that. And therefore, how they then respond to me is as if they would then respond to anyone else, because they have had that same experience from others telling them, even therapists, that you're not a good parent, you should be doing consequences, you should be doing this, you should. And once they hear this over and over and over again, they don't want to hear it anymore.
But that's a therapist doesn't use those words anyway. That's
their internal dialogue.
Yeah. Okay.
So
very good.
So when a parent comes into a therapist and the therapist is saying, it would be best if you put consequences in and do a behavioral chart. And when you as a parent don't necessarily abide by that parent chart and the therapist goes, by their own nonverbals, is it disapproving? So they get disapproving stares all the time from everyone, from the internet saying, oh, your child's not pretty enough, your child's not this enough, to your child, look, Johnny down the street whose kid is turning and rolling, my child's not, so now I'm going to compare myself to this parent down the street, and oh my goodness, I'm going to compare myself down this street, and that I must not be the greatest parent if I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. And then I have, it's just this ongoing overwhelmment of internal stimuli. So I think that that's the issue. So when we come up and say, parents, why aren't you taking responsibility for your child's internet access? We're now telling them again how they failed.
So this is perfect. This is perfect because this is very valuable to what you're sharing for me. Mm-hmm. And I started out this blab with the song from Toby Mac, Speak Love, Speak Hope, Speak Life.
Yes, exactly.
And my message is overwhelmingly coming from a position of love.
Correct.
That my actions to deal with the reactive side of what's happening with children is all out of love. I run Blocked Lives Matter because I see that this negative behavior on the social media that kids are doing, they're somebody's kids. So I'm loving on the nasty behavior that's happening on the internet, all from love,
right?
Because I don't want those lives to be disposed of. Then I want to come over and love the parents, but my loving on the parents is not being perceived as loving on the parents.
No.
Because talking about citizenship and stewardship and what is the parental role is being perceived as judgment, even though I'm not trying to apply judgment. I'm trying to love people into awareness.
Yes, exactly.
So how do I truly love people to the point where, my messaging has been consistent. I have not abandoned who I am. I am who I am. Faults and all, transparent and an emotional bag of mush.
Yes,
and
you are.
I self-admitted, and those people, they know this about me. I've been an emotional wreck when I've been in that nasty stuff. How do I help people, loving them to the point where they will put a pause on their internal critic and allow me to hug them?
You and I are in the same position. I hear you. I feel that. I'm getting tearful from it because I think it's the same situation.
It's not money, Lori.
No, it's not. It's not. It's
nothing to do with money.
And I'll get emotional. See, I'm getting emotional because I think that it's we understand, we are behind the curtain and understand the dangers of what could happen. And we're trying to then inform individuals who either A, are afraid to open up that, or do not acknowledge that it's there, or do not want to go past that because of their own internal things that are going on, fear, stigma, whatever it may be, the reason, that barrier there, shame, blame, guilt, whatever. But they will never open up that curtain unless there's someone holding their hand and walking them through it and saying, you're going to be okay. I'm going to walk you through this, and we will be this and do this together. And that you are not bad. You're not, you are who you are. And so I'm here to walk beside you. I mean, I'm with you. I'm in the same boat with you.
I'm just reading what John just posted. And it's, are you tired of being told how you're not succeeding as a parent? If so, I'm here to remind you that you are an amazing and doing a great job in society that is programmed by fear. And I'm here to offer love and the safe place to gain the skills of parenting. Just a thought. It's a great thought, John. It is a great thought. And that I believe when I have responses from people that they tell me these things that they're doing, and I'm like, holy smokes, those are fantastic things that you put in place to protect your child.
Yes.
And I'm saying that is great that you came up with those ideas themselves. And I'm here to say that I don't want to say what you're doing is bad, but there's so much more that we can talk about, and I can help you along that process. And it is not about what you're not doing, it's what you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that they're bad parents. I'm just saying that they're parents that don't know. And I can't be held accountable and judged based upon what I don't know.
Correct.
I have to have to go in the quest for knowledge. Yeah. And that's what I'm hoping to communicate. And I'm probably failing at that. That's probably what I'm hearing, is that message is not coming through in my words. And that I have to find a way to reform my words, because I believe I'm saying that. Now, obviously I'm not, but I believe I'm saying that.
Well, I think that we can always, what's really great about this is that we can always test it. What's really great is that you brought up a really great thing. Speak hope, speak life, speak love. Let's start off with that, the next blab. Speaking hope, life, and love with parenting, with parents and internet safety for your children. That's kind of, where we can start and see who kind of comes into play. I'm not sure. I'm with you. I'm with you on that too. I was on a blab just the other day.
I abandoned Blab as a platform to speak, because regardless of whatever title, whenever I had the word parent or I ever had the word kid in it, there would be nobody to come in and have a conversation. So I gave up on Blab, because whenever I would do it, people didn't want to have that conversation. So I went into a completely different media that had my messaging, that I have to pull that community into here, because the Blab community, those titles don't resonate.
No. No, but I think that if you do it globally, like you were saying, there's a piece where you do it globally of anyone on internet safety, let's just say, and then gradually put it down into, so the title is, internet safety in a world of whatever, hope, life, and love. I'm not sure. I think that we're just kind of, you and I are just kind of hashing it out, because we both are in that same situation. I try to do a blab on, what parent abuse is, or what child to parent violence is. And, and I was on the blab the other night where they're like, hey, check out my website and we'll give you feedback. And I'm like, great, I'm popping in. And so the one person that was giving me feedback was like, oh, yes, I'm in that situation. Yes. And so let me give you some feedback on your content, because from a parent's perspective, when they're Googling and doing different things, they want to make sure that they come to you, and they're going to be slow to come to you and getting that information until they trust you. So,
well, I have a know, like, and trust community in the Periscope world. I'm typing in there too.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I'm open for all kinds of creative input.
Yeah, I think that your content is really great. It's just now and same one with mine. The content is great. We've known that it works. I have research behind it as well. And I think the biggest thing is that how do you now get the information out there for families that, that would actually benefit from it without kind of taking away that curtain and showcasing that what's behind the curtain, but slowly doing it to where they become, adjusted to it and acclimated to that curtain being open.
I like that metaphor. I really do. Because the people that watch me on Periscope know what all my post-it notes mean. Mm-hmm. And if I were to put a curtain in front of all my post-it notes,
yes,
I would say, behind here, you guys know what's behind here. But I want to stand in front of this curtain and walk you along so you can be prepared and protected from what's back here. Because we don't need to talk about what's back here. If you want to peer behind the curtain and me tell you those stories back there, of the real lives that are going on there, we can go back there.
Right.
But I'm going to stand in front of the curtain with you and
bingo.
Good idea. Well, I think that's a great.
Yeah, and I think that any way that we can, get this information out there to parents, I think it's really helpful. I think, that's why you and I are collaborating together, because there's a certain, I want to put some information that's on the curriculum that we were talking before, and but what is it that's not going to be so overwhelming that they're going to take some of that and be like, ooh, this is really good, without it being overwhelming, like this big fire hose of water. But here's a cup of water, here's a cup of water,
I have, and that was the approach. My approach was that here's a cup of water, and oh, by the way, here's a swimming pool, and here's a bucket that you can pick out whatever you want.
Right.
My tribe will come.
Oh, good. Bring them over, John. Bring over the tribe. I mean, it's just.
Well, John, I'd like to connect with you because it seems like you're doing some very positive things in that community as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you're located, but I invite you to reach out to both Lori and I. We both have social media presence in Las Cruces. I have a friend over in Las Cruces.
Oh, you're also, John, it looks like you're a veteran. I'm a veteran too. Which branch were you in? Well, anyway, Ryan, I think this is a really great blab. I think this is really wonderful of what you're doing, and we'll just continue to do what we can do to help out.
This is really good. No, thanks for jumping in. Sherry, did you want to pop in a second? Did you want to have any, you want to share any of your thoughts? I saw you last night. Is there anything that I left dangling from my conversation on Blab last night? If you have to go, Lori, you can please jump out. Maybe next time. Okay. That's sweet. Okay. Thanks for your comments though. Thank everybody for their comments. I really appreciate it. Wow. Yeah. I am Neil has heard me do these conversations that I'm incredibly grateful for, not only the men in blue in the U.S., but the armed services that have done what serve my country, because I completely am so aware and thankful for the freedoms that I have that I did not suffer for. Mm-hmm. And it is a privilege that I have those. It's not a right. That was a privilege that many people have fought and died for, that give me the ability to be as passionate I can about things. So they have fought the fight that I did not fight. So I'm thankful for everyone's service in that regard, and for the officers in blue. Man, those lives are. Oh, yeah. I've done ride-alongs with policemen because I want to have their perspective of what they go through a daily day, and it's horrible. Mm-hmm. It's horrible. So,
yep.
All right, well, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lori. Thanks for everybody in participating. Have a great afternoon, and we will be continuing to pick it up in our next blab about keeping kids safe in a digitally immersed world. Thank you so much.
Take care, Ryan.
Take care.